Hi students, welcome back to my channel. For today, our lesson is all about the evidences of evolution. This is Module 5 of Grade 10 Science, and our most essential learning competency is to explain how fossil records, comparative anatomy, and genetic information provide evidence for evolution. What is evolution in the first place? Evolution is the change in inherited traits over successive generations in populations of organisms. This change allowed organisms to adapt and survive in their environment. Kung naaalala ninyo, ating pinag-aralan noong nakaraang linggo ang tungkol sa mutation. At syempre, merong mga mutation na masama at mabuti sa isang organism. Kung ang isang mutation ay mabuti sa isang organism, maaari na dalhin niya yung mutation na yon throughout the years at mag-evolve ng organism na yon. We will be discussing 4 evidences of evolution. First, we have fossil records. Second, comparative anatomy. Third, embryonic development. And fourth, genetic information. Let's start with fossil records. What are fossils or fossil records? Fossil records are traces of organisms that lived in the past and were preserved by natural process or catastrophic events. Fossils document the existence of now extinct past species that are related to present-day species. Fossils are usually found in sedimentary rocks, just like what is shown in the picture on the screen. There are 6 main types of fossils. However, we will be focusing on 2. Those are imprints and compressions. What is the difference between the two? Imprints are shallow external molds left by animal or plant tissues with little or no organic materials present. Kung mapapansin natin sa ating example, yung parang outline lang ng organism ang nakikita doon sa ating sedimentary rock or any type of rock where the fossil is found. That's why it's called imprint. On the other hand, compressions are animal or plant tissues preserved in sedimentary rocks and is formed with more organic material. So possible na yung mismong plant or animal ay nailagay doon sa sedimentary rock, kaya may mga natira pang mga organic materials doon. The next question is, how are the ages of fossils determined? Scientists have 2 methods. First is relative dating. When we say relative dating, the age of rock is compared to the other rock layers. Kaya nga relative, we relate the age of rocks. So usually, ang nangyayari dyan, kung ano yung pinakamalalim na layer, yun ang pinakamatanda. Kasi syempre, yan, yung layer na ito, itong dark green, after millions of years, magkakaroon ng mga sediments yan sa ibabaw paunti ng paunti. So kung ano yung layer na nasa pinakataas or nasa pinakaibabaw, yun ang pinakabata. Kung ano ang nasa pinakababa, yun ang pinakamatanda. And syempre, kung ang isang fossil ay natagpuan sa isang layer na nasa medyo mababaw na lugar, ibig sabihin, medyo bata pa yung organism na yon. Kung ang fossil naman ay matatagpuan sa pinakailalim, ibig sabihin, yung organism na yon ay nabuhay nung sinauna pang panahon. Napakatagal ng panahon ang lumipas. Meron din tayong tinatawag na radiometric dating or radioactive dating. Dito naman ang ginagamit ay yung isotope ng carbon na carbon-14. So yung carbon kasi ay makikita sa mga living organisms. So kapag yung isang organism ay namatay, nagdedecay yung carbon na yon, nagkakaroon ng mga isotopes, radioactive isotopes, and one of them is carbon-14. That's why this method is one of the best known methods of dating fossils. Now, what is an example of fossil records that we can use in this discussion? The picture shown on your screen is the evolution of a horse. May kita natin itong nasa pinakababa, ito yung pinakamatanda, tapos ito naman sa taas, ito yung medyo batang-bata na kabayo. So may kita natin na iba ang kanilang itsura sa isa't isa. Aside from that, if we examine the hooves or the forefoot of these horses, we can see differences. In the modern horse, we can see that the bone is like a single bone. Whereas, as you go back in time, makikita natin na meron pa siyang extra parts. Itong pinakaunang horse, nakita natin na parang meron pa siyang 4 na buto, na para siyang daliri, parang 4 na daliri. Tapos, after millions of years, nabawasan ng isa, naging 3 na lang. After millions of years again, nakita natin 3 na lang pero parang mas umiksi. Until now, makikita natin na yung paa ng kabayo parang single na lang siya, wala na siyang parang mga daliri. And that is found in fossils of these horses. Another thing is fossil record of whale evolution. O siguro nagulat kayo, bakit may paa dyan? The one on the uppermost left is a Pachycetus, which lived about 56 to 41 million years ago. It was believed to be the ancestor of the whale. Makikita natin na meron pa siyang limbs. On the second picture, makikita natin we have the Rhodocetus. Meron pa ring mga limbs, and this lived 47 million years ago. The third picture shows the fossil remains of a Dorodon, which lived around 40 to 33 million years ago, and this is a fully aquatic animal already. Makikita natin na may limbs pa rin siya, pero napakaliit na nung hind limbs niya. And then, we have the balena, parang balyena, diba? It is the most recent whale ancestor, and we can see that it is quite similar to the Dorodon except na mas malaki yung kanyang skeleton dito sa part na to compared dito sa part na to. So you see that these 4 species are believed to be the ancestors of the whale, and we can see that up to present, meron pa ring pelvis ang whale. Pero syempre, hindi na niya yan nagagamit. Also, if we look at the head of the whale, based on fossil records, we can see that the nostrils seem to be located nearer the end of the nose. Okay? Para sa tao, diba, yung nostrils natin nasa dulo ng nose natin. Pero, as years went by, nakikita natin na itong nostrils na to umaangat papunta sa mata. Until such time na napunta na siya dito, at ngayon ang tawag dyan lumalabas yung tubig, diba? We call them blowholes. So therefore, we can say that fossil records serve as strong evidences for evolution because we can actually compare or visualize what is the appearance of a species millions of years ago or for different eras. Next, the next evidence is comparative anatomy. Comparative anatomy is the study of the similarities and differences in the structures of different species. And here, we will be discussing 3 types of structures. We have homologous structures, analogous structures, and vestigial structures. What is the difference among the 3? Let's start with homologous structures. Homologous structures are body parts of organisms that may perform different functions but are of the same origin. So, bakit natin nasabi na the same origin? Kasi, makikita natin na kahit iba-iba yung functions nila, yung mga parts nila, yung mga segments nila halos parehas. So parang sa tao, meron tayong upper arm, meron tayong lower arm, meron tayong wrist, meron tayong palm, meron tayong fingers. Cats, whales, and bats have similar features. Although, the limbs of cats, whales, and bats have different functions. The presence of homologous structures is a strong indicator that the organisms evolved from common ancestors. So these similar parts are colored the same. For example, yung humerus natin, ito rin yung sa cat, ito yung sa whale, ito yung sa bat. Same with the radius, the ulna, carpals, metacarpals, and the phalanges. Homologous structures is related to a concept we call divergent evolution. Divergent evolution simply tells us that although specific species have common ancestors, they adapt different traits. For example, on the left side of the screen, we can say that all dog species came from wolves. But then, we have different dog breeds. We have different dog species. Similarly, zebras, donkeys, and horses are related, but they come from only one ancestor. Up next is analogous structures. So how is this different from homologous structures? Analogous structures are body parts of organisms that may perform the same function but are of different origins. For example, we can compare bird wings, insect wings, and bat wings. All these three organisms come from kingdom Animalia. However, they are from different classes. Birds came from class Aves, butterflies come from class Insecta, and bats are, of course, class Mammalia. So although they have different classes, they are all able to fly. So all of these structures are used for the same function, for flying. However, each organism has a distinct ancestor. O yun ang kaibahan ni analogous structure kay homologous structure. And if homologous structures are related to divergent evolution, analogous structures are related to convergent evolution. This means that two or different species evolve similar traits in spite of having distinct ancestors. Just like bats and whales, they both are capable of what we call echolocation, or they can find something by just releasing sound, and that sound helps them find food or helps them in their hunting. The next type of structures is vestigial structures. Vestigial structures are body parts that are useless or left over from a previous ancestor in which they were useful. If you remember, we have discussed about the fossil records of whales. Modern whales are found to still have pelvic bones. Ano ba itong pelvic bones na ito? Pelvic bones are like hip bones. Tayo, syempre, meron tayong hip bones kasi tayo ay nakakapaglakad. And this is related to the ancient whales na nakita natin na meron silang limbs. They can walk on land. So, up to now, itong mga pelvic bones na to, kahit wala silang gamit, ay nakikita pa rin sila doon sa katawan ng isang whale. So, dahil ang whale hindi naman naglalakad, we regard these pelvic bones as vestigial structures. The wings of ostriches are also regarded as vestigial structures. Bakit? Kasi alam naman natin na hindi naman kayang lumipad ng isang ostrich. The wings of an ostrich are too small to allow them to fly. Also, we have cave fish. If we compare a cave fish with a surface fish, yung cave fish, meron pa rin siyang eye, pero hindi naman siya nakakatulong para makakita ang isang cave fish. This means that these eyes are considered as vestigial structures. For humans, we have a few vestigial structures. First of them is the appendix. Maybe you have heard of some people who were treated with appendicitis. So, diba sabi nila kapag daw kakakain mo lang tapos talong ka ng talon o kaya kapag mahilig kang kumain ng mabubutong mga pagkain, it's a possible cause of appendicitis. However, the appendix itself is a vestigial structure. Ibig sabihin, meron siya sa katawan natin pero wala talaga siyang gamit. The next one is the wisdom tooth. Siguro yung iba sa inyo meron itong wisdom tooth na ito, yung iba wala pa, yung iba naman kakatubo pa lang. Pero itong wisdom tooth na ito, wala itong gamit. Hindi natin kailangan ng extra set of teeth. That's why it is considered as a vestigial structure. Sabi nila, kaya daw tayo may wisdom tooth kasi yung mga ancestor natin, ang kinakain nilang mga meat ay mga raw meat, mga karne na hindi naman niluto, hindi naman pinalambot. So, kailangan nila ng mas maraming ngipin para ma-digest nila yung mga kinakain nila. Another vestigial structure of humans are the bones found in the external ear. According to scientists, there are bones in the external ear that allow our ancestors to move the ears. So halimbawa, gusto nating marinig yung isang tao na nasa likod natin, gumagalaw daw yung tenga. That is a previous function of our ancestors. But now, we do not need it kasi nga, pwede naman natin igalaw yung ulo natin para mapakinggan yung isang tao or isang bagay na may tunog na nasa ibang direksyon. That's why it's considered vestigial. Finally, we also have tailbones. If we examine our skeletal system, we will notice that at the end of the vertebrae, we have a bone there which is like a tail. So, possible na millions of years ago, humans have tails. Sabi nga nila, 'di ba? Tayo daw ay nag-evolve from chimpanzees. Pero mamaya, meron tayong separate discussion about chimpanzees. Let's go now to the third evidence of evolution, and that is embryonic development. Embryonic development is the portion of the life cycle that begins just after fertilization. Many organisms have similar embryos supporting the idea of common ancestors. Halimbawa, pag kinompare natin itong mga embryo na to, on the first column, we have the embryo of a lizard. Second column, the embryo of a tortoise or turtle. Third column, the embryo of a pig. And then, finally, the embryo of a human. Sa early stages ng embryo ng lahat ng mga organism na yan, makikita natin na lahat sila may buntot. Therefore, we can say that these organisms are somehow related. Also, makikita din natin na the early stages of the embryos have gill slits, even the humans. Ano ba yung gills na yan? Iba yan yung ginagamit ng mga isda sa paghinga. Pero tayo namang mga tao, wala naman tayong gills ngayon. Pero our early stage embryo have gill slits. We also have tails. Yan yung pinakita ko kanina. Here we can say that the appearance of the early stage embryos of different organisms look alike. But then, the differences come when they reach the middle stage and, of course, the mature stage. Finally, let's go to the last evidence of evolution. We have genetic information. This is related to our previous lesson about mutations in Module 4. Here we can say that small mutations or changes in the DNA eventually lead to the evolution of new species. If in our previous discussion we said that a single insertion or a single deletion or a single substitution could lead to a major change in appearance, diba na alala ninyo yung Down syndrome, yung Klinefelter syndrome, yung mga sickle cell anemia, yung mga cystic fibrosis, yung mga yon, dahil lang yon sa isang maliit na pagkakamali sa DNA. pwedeng sa mismong nitrogenous base. Pwede ring may naputol dun sa mga chromosome. These small changes, over time, can lead to evolution. Here at the bottom part of the slide, we can see different organisms. We have the human, okay, we have the macaque, which is an old world monkey, and then we have the dog, the bird, then the frog, and then the lamprey, which is an aquatic vertebrate. Makikita natin na habang mas malayo siya doon sa human, mas maraming amino acid differences. So, anong ibig sabihin yan? Anong organism ba yung closest relative natin? If your answer is the monkey, your answer is correct. However, there is a specific breed or species of a monkey that is the closest to us, and that is the chimpanzee. Here I am showing you the chromosomes of humans and chimpanzees placed side by side. If you remember, I have told you in my previous videos that humans have 46 chromosomes or 23 pairs of chromosomes. On the other hand, chimpanzees have 48 chromosomes. Nagkakaroon ng kaibahan sa chromosome number 2 kung saan instead na 2, nagiging 4 sa kanila. Statistically, humans and chimpanzees have 98.8% similar DNA. So yung 1.2% na difference, yun lang yung nag-a-account dun sa differences ng itsura natin, differences ng traits natin between the human and the chimpanzee. And here I have an example of amino acid sequences of different animals. This is only for hemoglobin because we have different types of molecules. We can see here that the human and chimpanzee have exactly the same sequence of amino acids. But the horse, the gorilla, and then the zebra, they are different. Si gorilla medyo malapit, isa lang ang kaibahan. Pero sabi ko nga, there's a specific species of monkey that is closest to us, and that is the chimpanzee. So again, quick recap of what we have discussed today. Today we have discussed the 4 evidences of evolution. We have fossil records. We have comparative anatomy. And then, we discussed the embryonic development. And finally, we discussed genetic information. That's all for today's discussion. I hope you learned something from me in this lesson. So if you learned something, please don't forget to like this video. And if you are new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe. See you next video lesson. Bye!